All right. Good morning. We're here on Thursday. I'm Joel Fieri, and I wonder who's in the comments. I see Carrie's here. All right. Good morning, Carrie. Mike Johnson. Not a fan of the AIJC, but some messages are more realistic than others. What is the AIJC? AI, artificial intelligence, Jesus? Is that what you're saying? Not familiar with that. The reason I wanted to do the topic is called "Is Christ Taking Over the Internet?" A lot of you say, well, he already owns the internet. He owns the cattle, 1,000 hills. He owns everything. He's everywhere, which is true. The Bible does say, where can I go from your presence? If I go to the depths of the earth, you're there. So, Lucas, good morning. So the reason I wanted to talk about this is something blew up recently. Joe Rogan has had quite the revelation. A lot of people have been talking about this interaction he had. And it's part of a really long show, but he's talking to this guy, Cody Tucker, who's just like, I guess, a guy who has a show. I haven't really heard of Cody before, but they're talking about all kinds of things. And that's what Joe Rogan does. He just kind of does stream of consciousness. It's why really one of the reasons Trump won so big is because he went on with Joe Rogan and just shot the breeze for 3 hours is what he does. But there was this little nugget in there that people have pointed out and a lot of people are commenting on about Joe Rogan. So I'm going to, or when what Joe and Cody are talking about, I'm going to play it. And they're talking about kind of existence, and they get into God and how you can know things. And so they talk about that kind of thing. And then they start talking about space. So I'm going to pick it up there. But Joe Rogan says space is the ultimate who the F knows. So in the sense of maintaining network standards, I'll play it from there. Did I add it to the stage? Yes, I did add it to the stage. So let's see if this works.
Yeah. We can only see so far. We see so far, but even so far is only so far.
Well, and then they're saying like it's always expanding, which that can't be true, because like what is it expanding into? If space is space, you know, if they're like, oh, it's like blowing up a balloon where everything's okay, but you're blowing up a balloon in a room,
right?
So what's the room that you're blowing the balloon into? And then that's in a bigger room, and then that's in this.
And then there's the concept that it's actually finite. It's not infinite, and it's some sort of donut shape. It like goes back around eventually.
But then who made all that?
Right?
Like, is there a God? Did God make this,
or is God the universe?
Yeah, but then who made God? And then that bothers me.
Right. But
like, who made that thing?
Is that a thing that we think that, like, because we were born and we die, that we have these biological limitations that we attach to the universe itself?
That's fair. That we see things as being built and destroyed.
That there's always been something. Well, wouldn't it be crazy if there wasn't something at one point in time? That seems even crazier than there always has been something. Because if it's just something, if it's just the nature of everything, there is always something, right?
Right.
It couldn't be nothing and then all of a sudden everything. That seems,
because what started that? What kicked that off?
Exactly.
What snapped its fingers? Like
that's McKenna's great line. Terrence McKenna had a great line about the difference between science and religion. Is that science only asks you for one miracle? I want you to believe in one miracle, the Big Bang.
Yeah. That's a good one.
It's a great line. Yeah. It's because it really is true. Yes. And it's funny because people would be incredulous about the resurrection of Jesus Christ, but yet they're convinced that the entire universe was smaller than the head of a pin, and for no reason than anybody's adequately explained to me. Makes sense.
Yeah. No.
Instantaneously became everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't buy that.
I'm sticking with Jesus on that one. Like, Jesus makes more sense.
It makes.
Okay. So the kicker on that is this final line. I'm sticking with Jesus. Jesus makes more sense. the questions there, the conversation there is something you really can't have these days. Certainly not in church, or at least the church circles that I run in. So the evangelical, maybe Southern California church culture. Then I find this discussion would just go over people's heads, I think. Although he's talking about the basic truth that you need to grapple with when you're grappling with the existence of God. And why are we here? How did we get here? But the reason I said is Jesus taking over the internet. Joe Rogan is not the first guy like this. Celebrity, previous. I know a little bit about Joe Rogan. Years ago, I lived in San Diego by Mission Bay, and I had a boat. I was a single guy with a boat. When you're a single guy with a boat, amazing things happen. All these really attractive women show up wanting to be on your boat. So it was all right, put it that way. So I was, it wasn't anything for me to put my boat in Mission Bay and tool around, water ski, wakeboard, whatever. And there was a girl at a friend of mine's church, and she wanted to go on Fear Factor, which was the show that Joe Rogan hosted. And if you ever saw Fear Factor, it was basically Joe Rogan daring people to do either gross stuff or really dangerous stuff, eat bugs, or I don't know, bungee jump, whatever it was. I forget what it was, but he was kind of the wisecracking. He's a comedian. He was on News Radio, which is my second favorite show of the 90s, next to Seinfeld. Maybe third, next to Third Rock from the Sun, but we won't get there. But Joe Rogan was a heathen. This girl went on, and she got on the show. She wanted to water ski behind. We were filming her for. I should expand on this. We were filming her for her application for the show. She said, "Hey, can I go on your boat and can you film me water skiing?" Because this girl was very, very athletic, bonsai kind of girl that was, she would have loved. She wanted so bad to be on Fear Factor because she's like, dare me to do anything, I'll do it. Just game on, kind of thing. So we filmed her water skiing behind my boat. That was one of the things she sent in, and she got on Fear Factor. And she was a Christian girl, and Joe Rogan, and she was very vocal about her Christianity on the show. Someday I'd have to find the show. I never did see it, but she said she was very vocal about her faith in the show, and Joe Rogan was very hostile to her and hostile to her faith. So he's come a long way. But the reason he's come a long way, and this is what I see happening on at least part of the internet. Good morning, AC. There's other people, Russell Brand probably being the most prominent, former, kind of stars, living the kind of the movie star or TV star lifestyle that have at least not necessarily come to faith. Although Russell Brand has, Joe Rogan is now out that he's attending a church. And Joe Rogan attending a church. I have some relatives and some friends that are like, I can't go to church. I'd burn a hole in the seat, in the pew or whatever, if I was in church. And another Marine friend of mine that I brought to church, he goes, I can't go in there. The walls will collapse. You don't know what I've done. I'm like, so he goes in, has a great time and really gets impacted. And I just said, hey, because of what Jesus did, the walls don't have to collapse. He took the brunt of what you're worried about. So, but Joe Rogan is in church. So, and the reason I think, and I've seen this over the years, like I said, about 13, 14 years, ago, I got into this new thing called podcasting. I talk about that sometimes. And is basically people on demand. Back then it was on demand audio files, and it became on demand video. You get to choose what you want, and you get to talk about what you want. And if people are interested and they hear about you, they'll come. So was Justin Bieber? Yeah. Years ago I heard about that he was a Christian, and he had been, by the way, I don't know why, again, I have this Exodus, John, Proverbs, and Philippians 3. I'll have to talk about Mike leaving his things up. But Justin Bieber famously years ago, I guess became a Christian or started a faith journey. So, and there's been other guys too. There was a guy I used to listen to named Stefan Molyneux, and he was an atheist, but that the more, I think Jordan Peterson has had a spiritual faith journey, because he's been on this platform where you can, if you want to, you can come and discuss anything you want. And Christians have inserted themselves in this platform to get the conversation steered towards things like the existence of God, things like, the resurrection of Jesus. No mystery why Joe Rogan tied the Big Bang to the resurrection of Christ. Those, it's easier to believe actually that Jesus rose from the dead than it is that the entire universe expanded in a millisecond from nothing to everything with no, with no nihilo, I think they call it, with no start. That's the one miracle science wants you to believe in, that you have to believe in science. So I just think it's really interesting. And the reason I wanted to bring it up today is because, as I said, this is a conversation that you will not hear, or these are ideas that you will not hear very often, at least in my little slice of the Christian world. You won't hear this stuff. The only place you're really hearing this stuff is on the internet. It's been drummed out of college campuses. You can't. Years ago, I was a co-producer of a documentary with Dennis Prager and Adam Carolla about, it's called No Safe Spaces, about cancel culture on college campuses. And this was 10 years ago that we started that project, when it was, cancel culture was relegated to college campuses, or it was incubating there. And one of the things that we knew is that everyone said, when they get out in the real world, they'll realize they can't act like that. They can't cancel people for not believing what they believe, and people aren't going to tolerate that. Well, the opposite happened. They brought it. All that cancel culture incubation moved into the workplace, and we saw it, for so many years, and now that's hopefully being turned around. But one of the reasons even that happened is because the internet is like the last sanctuary for free thought and free discussion. And it's interesting that guys like Joe Rogan and Russell Brand are tuning into this kind of thing, and other people. And the guy who nailed it, and I was looking for the video before I came on, just didn't have time to find it, is Tim Pool. And if you know Tim Pool, the guy with the beanie, who is now a White House correspondent, off and on. He was on a show with a guy named Konstantin Kisin, who's a real interesting guy, called Trigonometry. But they were making the argument that, left and right are equally crazy. He said, and Tim Pool, formerly liberal guy, who's now, he still considers himself a liberal, but he's very conservative. If you watch him, he's very conservative for the same reason. he said, he's saying the left is crazy. And the guy on the opposite side of the table on the show was saying, well, I could say that about the right too. I could say that both is crazy. And Tim Pool says, you'd be wrong. He goes, and I can prove it. He says, because if on my show, on Tim's show, he says, I was a liberal, atheist, whatever. And I could have any conservative on that I asked. Any conservative I asked to come on and talk about things, they would come. And we would have a perfectly civilized, intelligent discussion. At the end, I would thank them. We'd go for a beer, whatever. I could have, I think you mentioned Charlie Kirk can come on, conservative Christian guy, and I'm an atheist, and we can talk. And afterwards, we'd be friends, because you can't do that with the left. The left will not come on my show, he said. And if you disagree with someone on the left, they won't go out to for a beer with you. They won't be your friends. They won't shake your hand and say, thanks, that was a good discussion. They'll firebomb your house. And so this is what I think this kind of platform has exposed. And Tim is not quite there. He's still on the fence, but you can see his progression, right? Heck, you can see Bill Maher's progression. Nobody's more radical atheist and left than Bill Maher. But even he sees that he can have intelligent conversations with these conservative Christian people, and they're not going to come after him. And he can be as staunch in his position as he wants, and they'll just come back with their position like it should be. But if you go on the radical atheist left, Marxist left, godless left, and let's face it, that's what it is. There is no grace like that. There is no acceptance. There is no give and take. There is no respect. So people are more and more seeing this because Christians have made themselves a presence. And this has been argued against by the pulpit and by evangelical thinkers most of my Christian life. There's been a dichotomy in the evangelical world of people who were involved in the culture war, right? Who inserted themselves in culture for trying to advocate for Christian principles. And there have been those who said, no, we're above that. We're not going to do that. And the ones who didn't want to do that have always said, no, that's not the way you're going to win culture. You're not going to win people to Jesus by being involved in culture and inserting Christian principles and trying to, affect politics, affect culture, just love on people, love them into the kingdom. You got to build a relationship first, all this kind of thing. This is, the whole false dichotomy I talked about between love and truth. You can't hit them with the truth. You got to hit them with love, and then they'll be willing to hear your truth. It just doesn't work that way. The truth of God is the thing that's effective. Our mission is to speak truth. Love is the modifier, okay? And that's what, if this thing with Joe Rogan didn't happen in a vacuum. He has had several Christian people on his show who have talked him through. I remember one guy was saying, Joe was saying, you're an atheist. He goes, no, you're not. You're an agnostic. There is no such thing as an atheist, because there's no such thing as knowing that there's no God. In order for you to know that there's nothing beyond this life, beyond our time and space, you yourself would have to go beyond time and space to know that. You can't pause. It's a self-defeating principle. So he's had lots of people who've been willing to come on to an unfriendly environment with a heathen guy like Joe Rogan and share their faith. Even a lot of Jewish influencers like Ben Shapiro, I think Rubin, I think, is Jewish, and he was also gay. But has come a long way and very former atheist who's tuning in. You could see the journey they're on. You can see that God has reached them and is calling them. Now, whether they're going to respond or not, that remains to be seen, but there's been a breakthrough. And it's because Christians have positioned themselves in this sphere. And now the only question is, are we going to remain there, and are we going to re-enter other spheres where we've either pulled back or haven't been willing to go in? And are we going to speak about these things in church, from the pulpit, within our own circles, reaching out to our own communities, giving them truth in love? So that's really what I wanted to throw out there for you guys. So again, it's navigating culture. It takes a lot of thought, and it takes a lot of unity. And that's one thing we really don't have. If we're going to affect the world, we're going to have to hit them with truth. And it's funny that Jesus said this. He said, when he got his disciples together, he said, "This command I give you, as I have loved you, you love each other. So the world will know that God sent me." And people misuse that verse all the time. They say that means we should go out and love people. No, it doesn't. It means we should be in the community as a body. Jesus was talking to his disciples, saying, "You, my disciples, love each other as I have loved you." So the world can see that God sent me. So it's our love for each other that will show the world that the truth we're telling them is true. Now, there are obviously other parts where it says love your neighbor, love the individual, like the Good Samaritan, right? Love whoever God brings to you. But our main responsibility is not to love the world. Our main responsibility is to tell the world the truth in love. And that's the thing that will convince them that Jesus is from the Father and that his message is true. But we've lost that, okay, because our involvement in the world and our efforts in the world have been met with resistance, and the cool kids don't like us. We tend to pull back and think, well, if we can make them happy, then they'll, if we can show them love, show them we're super nice people and that we'll serve them, then they'll come around, and then we'll tell them the truth. But we never really get around to telling them the truth, or we modify the truth so it's palpable to them. So they'll accept it better. They'll receive it better. But that's not going to work. And that's not Jesus' model. We are to be one as his followers, as his disciples. And that's why Satan's biggest victory has been to split the people of God, to tear us apart into all these different denominations, all these different sects, all these different philosophies. It's been a masterful job, really, because half the time we're at each other more than we're at the world. So that's the formula, but we've got to be out in the world, and we've got to prepare people, and we've got to equip people within our churches to do this. So it's about time for the churches to stop lecturing and tisking people who are involved in culture and saying, "Oh, be nice now. Don't do that. You don't tell them too much harsh truth. Don't tell them that they're sinners and that they're headed. No, don't do that. Don't worry about the doctrines. Don't worry about truth. Don't hammer them over the head with truth. No, hammer them over the head with truth. God's word, God's truth is powerful, and it will do a work. So, and I think the internet has just been kind of like a little laboratory, and you can see the results. You can see what thoughtful Christians who are committed to the truth, speaking the truth in love. They spoke the truth to guys like Joe Rogan and Russell Brand and Tim Pool and even Bill Maher. And it's having an effect. God's word is having an effect, and we got to trust the truth of God's word. So, let's see some other comments here. You guys have been kind of silent here. All people have to do is be willing to learn and then listen. But it takes, by nature, though, they're not willing to learn again about God. By nature, that they're at enmity with God. So that's where the truth, the sword of the Spirit, or the sword of the Word, right, has to come, and it has to penetrate some resistance. So that's why we need the truth. We can't keep thinking, oh, I know there's a lady at our church. She said, everyone has their own time for coming. Everyone will come eventually. No, they won't. The Bible makes it very clear that many are called, few are chosen. And, there's a lot of chaff to be separated from the wheat. And that's just the reality of it, the harsh reality of it. And why God made it that way, I don't know, but I'm not God. And he didn't ask me. He didn't ask for my advice. So it's interesting to see down the line as we enter this kind of we're in this new world. And like I talked about the other night, this platform can't be all we have. We have to be engaged with each other in churches, with the people, God has put in your family. And we have to interact, and we have to find a way to love each other as Jesus loved us, his disciples. And so when we go out into the world will see how we love each other, right? And they'll see, hey, that's something we don't have. And they believe in Jesus. They believe that Jesus was sent by God. Look at the way they love each other. Look at the way that body of believers functions. There must be something to that truth they're telling me. That's, I think, the idea. So, absorbing what you're saying. Good. I hope so. And I hope it's not with your eyes closed. But I appreciate you guys listening. This is kind of a soapbox of mine. I recently, pastor did a sermon on this and on that particular verse, and he got it started off right, and then he said, so just go out there and love everybody in the world. And I'm like, no, that's not what he's saying in that verse. But anyways, so tomorrow I will be on by myself. I think Ben's out this week, and Michael's no longer doing these second shows. So yeah, eyes closed, ears open. Okay. I've been that way. So I think tomorrow we've got, I think I'm going to talk a little more about AI. I know I talked about AI a lot because some things have broken with AI in the last few days, a week or so, that are pretty interesting. So I'm really going to talk a little bit about how the church, we have to start thinking about how we're going to react to AI, because AI, if what they're saying is true, if AI is, and what I've seen is true, AI is going to be, people are going to say AI will cause a disruption in society. It's going to be more than a disruption. AI is going to turn society as we know it upside down. And we need to start talking 5 years ago about how we're going to handle this, which is another thing that we tend to avoid in church and in Christian circles. But if we don't start talking about this really soon and really seriously, we're not going to know what to do. We're not going to know how to handle this. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, and hopefully get your guys' thoughts on that. Yes, we are all going to die. Nobody gets out of here alive. Okay. So, but it's just a matter of how many people we take with us up to the kingdom. So anyways, I got to go. It's half an hour. So thanks for listening, guys. And I will see you tomorrow.